Hi, I'm Samantha Murray,
Hi, I'm Courtney Sembler.
and this is CX Signals.
This week on CX Signals, I'm sitting down with Clea Mahoney, who leads customer education at Roost, a workflow automation platform for managed service providers that presents one of the most genuinely complex customer education challenges I've come across. Every single customer is building something different, which means there's no standard playbook, no one-size-fits-all curriculum. Clea has to figure that out fresh every time. What makes this conversation so good is that Clea isn't talking about AI in theory. She walked me through the actual workflow she's built inside Claude to audit, update, and maintain her course content, from the Notion drafts to the instructional design rubric she trained Claude on, to the multi-chat structure she uses to keep context windows from getting overwhelmed. It is specific, it's practical, and it is the most honest account I've heard of what it actually takes to build an AI workflow that holds the bar on quality. And yes, her baby Willow made a cameo, because that's just how we do things here. Let's get into it. All right, Clea, welcome to CX Signals. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Thank you. Ditto. Super excited, also super distracted, and was really tempted to just delay this again, but I'm all about being real, and I know you are too. So I'm excited to get into it today.
Life happens, we're just going to roll with the punches. Amazing. So you and I have been nerding out about some AI stuff for a little while, and I definitely want to get into all of that. But before we do, I would love to start with you. I would love to start with talking about you. I know that you've worked across a lot of different industries, across higher ed, corporate, SaaS. So I think that's honestly maybe not that unusual, but it's interesting as a background. I'm curious, with you coming into customer ed, like what has that cross-sector background actually given you that you think supports your career when you think about the opposite, which would be like that single track career in SaaS?
Yeah, absolutely. And I get into great detail on this in various other podcasts. So folks can definitely find those rambles out there on the internet. But I will say why I love customer education and why I hope to stay here is it's everything that I love in a little nutshell that encompasses adult learning. So I started off in higher education doing faculty training and instructional design. It was great, but I got very frustrated with traditional learning curricula. And I think that's the academic term, curricula, not curriculums. I get annoyed at academic speak, academies. I get annoyed when I look at a 12-week syllabus and I'm like, oh my God, I have to do all of that, or I have to teach all of that. So I've also adjunct taught. Left higher ed in about 2021 or 2020, right during that pandemic time when I was teaching folks how to teach online. They did not want to be teaching online. I was an instructional designer at Automatic doing internal training for various teams. So all about support representative skills, how to educate customers of various products. Weirdly, I've been like on the periphery of customer education for most of my career, I think, even from my very first job working as an admin at a heating and cooling distributor. I went on to become their marketing program manager, picked courses out of a traditional catalog. I think they mailed one to me back in the day that our customers would take to not just sell the products that we were selling, but become good HVAC companies that would then get hired to do the equipment installing, right? So I've always been interested in meaningful learning, not necessarily product training, but like helping someone do a thing that they need to do for their professional career or for fun. And, the click path or how you use the product is just a part of that experience. So customer education, love the non-traditional lens, love that it's not compliance training. I did some of that, found it super boring. No shade to those who love it, but I really love the extra challenge of customer education being entirely optional unless, a customer's boss makes it mandatory for their employees. We've got to make sure that every course earns its place, it deserves to exist, it does a job, And that has really been the focus of the Claude work that I'm going to share with you today.
Amazing, amazing. Before we get into it, maybe share a little bit about what Roost is for anyone who is not aware.
Sure, they are an automation platform designed for MSPs, managed service providers. So think an IT company that has a bunch of clients. They might be managing endpoints. I don't really know what an endpoint is, but it's like a computer or other stuff. They are designing automations to improve, just consistency and efficiency for the work that they do, supporting their clients, but also increasingly figuring out, okay, what are their clients doing that would benefit from automations? So all about supporting users with technical equipment and services. And as you can imagine, our customers have very complex needs because they often struggle to standardize and get things consistent across their clients. So, you think about an automation platform like, I don't know, Zapier or something that's more like end user facing. Super easy for us to do. The MSP and our customer, their challenge is how do I work in all of the intricacies and maybe slight differences that my clients need in this process that I'm trying to automate?
Oh my gosh, I
So,
can imagine how that adds a whole layer of complexity to the programs that you're building. How
yeah.
do you approach curriculum design from that lens, thinking about all these different customer needs and all of these like nuances that they all face?
I don't even know if I have a straightforward answer, but I would say what I love doing and what I'm excited to do more of, and it took me too long to get here, is I try to talk to our customers as much as I can. In the beginning, I would spend a lot of time with our CSMs, with sales reps, with the folks at Roost who were spending time with our customers to learn about their needs. But in the last few months and in the current project that we're working on, we are actually getting great feedback from customers. So feedback from all those lenses is useful. I don't want to position one above the other, but lately I've been less shy about going to one of our community special channels. We use Discord at the moment, and we've got a channel called Bird Brains. Roost is a whole chicken pun thing going on for our certified customers, and many of them are eager to contribute their expertise. Like they've been through the hardest courses, they've earned their little badge and credential, and I have learned some great insights from them that have helped us evolve our courses. Like one that I recently updated was all about how to even approach an automation. And I knew this big part was missing because it's not like you build it once and it's done, or you build it and then something breaks because the underlying APIs change. But you got to have a plan for maintenance, just like you got to have a plan for curriculum design and updates at the very start. So shout out to Sam Vogel. He contributed a lesson on the automation life cycle, and it's in there in our course. And he's giving us a lot of great feedback on the behind the scenes content that we are working to improve.
So awesome. I love hearing from teams that are leveraging their community and the experts in their community for user generated content in their academies. It's like I feel like that's such an undertapped modality to leverage for customer ed teams. It's something that we did a lot of at Shopify, and I'm such a huge fan of it because I just think the cross connection and the interweaving of community plus customer ed is definitely the future that anyways I'm working towards and excited about, in addition to all of the AI stuff that we're going to talk about. So earlier when we had our prep call, you had shared that there were some changes to the team earlier this year. Without getting too much into the weeds on the specifics of that, I'm just curious, it'll set the stage for our AI conversation. What did those changes mean for how you had to think about your work and your team's work? Perhaps you had less resources and that meant that you had to shift a little bit towards some AI stuff. What did all that mean for you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard. I just want to put that out there because I know a lot of teams, a lot of companies, a lot of individuals are going through similar or the same challenges. We are asked to do more with less, whether it's less budget, fewer resources people wise. And we'd been using AI for a while. We started I think many of us do, throw something into Claude or ChatGPT, help me write this better, or give me a lesson outline. But those constrained resources really challenged me to slow down and just rethink how I was using AI. So I'm the kind of learner who, again, doesn't want to take long courses or invest in another master's program, but I'm like, let me see what I can learn about using AI like Claude. Not only is it going to help me work more efficiently in the stuff that I have to do for my day job, leading customer education at Roost, but it's also going to help me create more empathy with our customers who are increasingly using AI in their own work when it comes to automating processes, whether that's with Roost or other products. And a lot of that shared learning certainly extends beyond just what I'm doing with my team to expedite our work or to improve our work or to change how we're doing it into lessons that we can also fold into that updated curriculum for our customers.
Right. How did you make the transition? Like one of the things that I found really difficult and this happened for me personally when I transitioned from ChatGPT to Claude, which happened a couple of months ago. I had to make this transition from, like, to your point, using AI very much in the lens of help me polish this thing that I've already pre-written, or maybe help me do a little bit of research on this thing. And I'm asking it conversationally, just like I would with a person, like, help me do this thing, versus the shift that I had to make personally when I switched to Claude was like, oh, it's like workflow design. It's like a whole other mental model that I don't think I was fully prepared for. So how did you find that transition, and how did that impact the subsequent, oh my God, hi,
So you got Willow.
anyone who's like listening and not watching the video right now, go watch the video because we're going to get into some screen sharing stuff that you're going to want to listen to. But
Yeah.
also, there's that baby.
Yeah, my sweet baby, bless my husband. He's been watching her all morning. So you get to hear from both of us today.
What's her
But
name?
I'm here for it. I'm all about being real. Her name is Willow.
Hi, Willow.
You say hi?
The sweetest.
She's feeling sick.
That's, yeah, very unfortunate. I understand those days so much. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, what was that transition like for you, very honestly? Because I think we like fluff past that really often, the learning curve that's involved in forming those mental models to use it like workflows, and the coding aspect that I know you're going to get into. Like, what was that actually like for you?
Oh yeah, it was super hard. And like I do when I'm learning anything new, I kind of get laser focused on something and then I spin my wheels for a while, and it's because I'm trying to be perfectionist about it. So overall, I'll say that my main lesson learned is like start with where you are and start with what you think is going to work, but don't be afraid to adapt it over time. Like I'm still not sure that I've landed on the ideal Claude structure. Right now, we are using Claude AI through the web, a project trained with certain instructions, with certain markdown files attached to the project files, with a few skills that are designed for this project, but could also be done in any other Claude chats or projects, like creating a quiz based on, good instructional design, writing, and avoiding like the stuff I hate about a lot of quizzes that I still see online, like, what do you do? Click A or punch Sally in the face. Like, and some of my training with Claude was like just me voice texting that type of feedback. I'm like, don't ever give me this type of question. Don't take me literally, but I'm going to know if you give me that question. So you be a good instructional designer, Claude. I give it some models, I tell it we're trying to do Kathy Moore's action mapping. I mention my wannabe grandfather, like I love Richard Mayer and his multimedia principles. So I'm like, you go find out about Richard Mayer. I want you to be an expert on him for this project. It's been a lot of back and forth and a lot of evolution. And I also changed my mind a lot about how we were going to do this thing with Claude. So I'm happy to share my screen and put some of this like abstract stuff into practice.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into the
Yeah.
workflow. And why don't we start with, I guess, like maybe as you're doing that and as you're pulling up, the first question in this, we had this conversation in our prep call, but like the workflow that I think of most often, right? And I think most customer ed teams are thinking about most often is how can I expedite the content creation process? You spoke to some of those instructional design best practices. Like what was the initial workflow that you were starting with and that you were trying to accomplish using Claude? Was grounded in like an actual practical workflow.
Yes. So got a bunch of visuals on my screen. What I'm actually going to start us with is this little thing that I randomly pasted into Notion because I needed somewhere to reference it. So overall, I want to point out again that I've evolved this over time. I was going through one course and asking, hey, I need to update this course because it's like the first course that every single user takes in Roost, whether they are building, whether they are just looking at it, whether they bought the product and they're barely going to log in, but they need to make sure that their company is getting value from it, right? Like we need to make sure that this course deserves to exist. So that was the most important stuff. And that led us into this alignment check that I can share about a little bit more deeply. Over time and in testing this work through the Claude project across multiple courses, I discovered that we couldn't actually take the same cookie cutter approach to every course. Some of them deserved to have different lesson structures. Some of them needed more video versus less video, or like product agnostic visuals entirely, so that bane of every customer education in SaaS's team's existence, I think, is like, something changed in the product. We got to update everything, right? So I'm like, how can we get ahead of that and maybe get to like 2 years out where we don't have to make updates because our visuals are teaching the concepts and there's a different way to represent that visually than showing stuff in the platform. So part one was like slowing down and just asking, hey, go look at our course database, which is a little something like this. Here's an abbreviated snapshot. The course that I started with was the Roost crash course. So gives us the audience, in this case, like it's the business leader and the technical builder. And then overall, and like also through this Claude project, I made sure that what we were changing about why the course deserves to exist. So like, what's the description? What are the desired outcomes? And what are the success metrics that we can actually evaluate to see whether this course is achieving its goal and, making the difference for Roost and also for our customers? I needed that to exist in our system of record. And I was really inspired by the recent CX Signals episode where you spoke with the LinkedIn leader who talked about their mothership. Like this, this Notion database is my mothership. I've had some eyebrows raised from folks that I've talked with in product at my company and elsewhere. They're like, I don't know why you're doing this in Notion. And I'm like, look, it needs to exist somewhere, whether it's a spreadsheet or Notion. The LMS alone doesn't capture this level of detail that I need. And so like this little item here has all the historic updates we've made. It even has some course analysis snapshots. So this is a big part of that update and what got me to work with Claude to generate a diagram. Over time, we really evolved a lot. But the course audit lifecycle, I think, now looks a little something like this. So my best advice really is to map this out on paper, but don't be afraid to test it and iterate it over time. I also learned, and if you're using Claude or a similar tool, like unless you are doing Claude code in the terminal and you can see how full context windows are getting, etc., side tangent, go check out producttalk.org and read Teresa Torres's introductory Claude Code articles there. A lot of them are available like part of the content for free. But I learned like why AI like Claude or ChatGPT gets bad over time is the fuller its context window gets, the more it's going to drop important details or be like, what did you want again? Or, kind of like we get overloaded cognitively, right? There's so much overlap between how the technology works and how our brains work. So
that's
this is a big change from what I started initially, where we were like, okay, phase 0 is alignment. And I'll show you a little snapshot here. And it's evolved to just like hot mess. And I need to incorporate Eddie's feedback on this course, but alignment check. And then in various other parts, we talk about like phase 1, gate 1. All of that was thoroughly confusing me because I had changed so much over time. So this is where we're at now. And it's more a diagram that represents how things are functionally. Chat 1, does this course deserve to exist? If not, let's cut it. If so, and Crash Course made the cut, I'm pleased to announce, then let's have it be as strong as possible. So best course database item, best course description, create a Notion draft page with updated content. And it was really important for us to break this into multiple stages, phases, whatever you call it, technically, functionally, multiple chats because of that context load, right? And what it's carrying in every conversation. So in the second one, we're like, cool, this course deserves to exist. We've got strong objectives, audience, etc. Go draft me some content. And that is when we get to something like this here. I was going to show you the troubleshooting course, but that one I am actually still working through. So this is probably the better example. And this is another big lesson learned of like, I told Claude I would look at the updated content here and I'd be like, yep, I'm going to make sure that it's good. I'm going to tell you what to change. I'm going to write stuff here. And if you ever see human writing, like, hi, then Claude does not get to change that. Like it always is going to respect what the human is doing. But reality check, when it comes to actually looking at the course in the LMS, there is always something that I notice and I change my mind about it. So in this project, in this course last week, I think it was last Friday, I went through, I took screenshots and I'm like, okay, this is the stuff that we landed on. I need you to make sure that this matches what is in the Notion documentation. By the way, let's move that Notion page to the course database because I have all this old drafts and I need a system of record. So that was a critical part.
I'm curious how you're thinking about ingestion of like contextual data, product documentation, that like core sort of SME knowledge, I guess, in the
Yes.
context of creating these updates. How are you taking that and feeding it into Claude to leverage some of that to help support its process of like auditing and revising the content?
So great questions. How are we making sure that we're not just writing well, but we are incorporating subject matter expert feedback, customer feedback, updates that we need to make because the product terminology and visuals have evolved. A lot of that has also been iterative. And I'll say that it often isn't until we get past all the Notion drafting for like quality writing and does this make sense and cognitive load. Once things are actually in Skilljar, this was a really key part of it. And it started as a wild idea. So I thought we'd have better results if the person who is doing the audit work up to this point is not the person who adds in the updated visuals. And that's because I tried it the other way around. I tried to do it all myself, and it was just looking like that kind of generic, crappy AI output. And so we really needed that fresh perspective, different team member going in there and being like, does what I'm seeing in the LMS make sense? And where I see red placeholder text because Notion and Skilljar can't like share visuals among them. I'm doing all the hosting in Skilljar as part of this project. We just get a block of HTML from Claude that we open up in a lesson in Skilljar and paste it in and then publish it and see if it looks good. And like that was a whole training thing in itself to teach it the intricacies about Skilljar's HTML and CSS. And it inspired me to fix some things globally in our theme that now I don't need to touch that stuff in lessons. But then there's like some components like a table where I do need some overrides because whatever technical reasons. Once we have it in there, the other team member, the person who hasn't done the audit work so far, they're giving it fresh eyes and they're like, yep, this makes perfect sense. Where I see the red placeholder text, I'm going to add that visual and I know exactly how to do that because the lesson makes it clear enough what we're describing, etc. In other cases, though, it'd be like, yeah, it says put a visual here, but I actually think we need one earlier or later or something else entirely different. So this is another key point and place where that human expertise is really needed. So in terms of like the terminology updates and SME feedback, Sometimes that happens in different parts depending on the course and depending on how much we're updating. Some of the courses that we worked on with this project are pretty agnostic, like it's about planning and automation before you build it. That didn't need a lot of changes in terms of terminology, if any. It was more like, does this make sense? And is it actually something that a user will use to plan their automations? Because in my opinion, it was a little bit too idealistic. Like we had a course called process engineering, which was awesome, but it's also 50 minutes and it's a lot of text and a lot of templates. And I'm like, this looks good, but is it realistic for me? I don't know. So I'm getting feedback from the original SME that we worked with, my boss, Eric, and we are updating it for like, what do we know is important for planning and automation and what's realistic for people to do, right? So stuff like that, product platform agnostic mostly. In other cases, where there was a course that did need a lot of terminology updates, like there was a thing in Roost that is still called a completion handler, kind of, sort of. It has like 3 terms. But in the new version of our workflow builder canvas, those terms don't exist anymore. It's going to be called an inbound trigger for the workflow. So like one workflow can trigger another workflow, or an outbound trigger. You're looking at a thing on the canvas, a bunch of stuff happens in the middle. That's one automation. At the end, you have an outbound trigger that kicks off a separate workflow, right? So think about it like building blocks that you're chaining together. And I think the new terminology is going to simplify all of this for a lot of users and for myself personally. So with a course like that, where important stuff was changing in the product, I would make sure that Notion was fed our documentation about the terminology changes. And again, this is where like lessons learned about context window and new chats, it would miss things and I would know. And so I'd be like, okay, redo this. First, focus on the writing updates. Then, now that we've gotten the writing solid, I need you to specifically look at this document that I uploaded to the chat, check for terminology changes. Here are the 3 terms that stand out to me in particular. Be on the lookout for those. Like that kind of focused work was required for courses that needed it.
So it sounds like there was this, like, the important thing that I'm taking away from what you're sharing is like breaking things down into concrete steps and not just trying to do everything in a single workflow, because
Absolutely.
otherwise we could confuse the AI a little bit, just like we would a human if we were giving them too many steps all at once.
Yeah. And really, it wasn't until I had gotten frustrated and banged my head against the desk a few times that I realized it would be beneficial to split some of this stuff out. So now in Claude, I have a skill for converting markdown text built in Notion again, which is very markdown friendly. And Claude loves markdown as well. Markdown is my new jam. In the beginning, I was like, this is kind of just like a poor man's HTML. Why do I need this? Now I'm like all about it. Sometimes it be like that with technical stuff. Sorry, I got on a wild tangent there, but sometimes it took hitting those points of frustration that I realized I was trying to do too much at once. The order of operations that I was trying to do things in didn't really make sense. And I need to just slow down and look at one chunk. And for example, like one of the things that I just changed very late on in this process, I'm not sure if it's reflected in this visual. Not yet. So I'm going to go back and ask Claude, hey, update this visual based on what I just told you about quizzes. Like, if you think about what I was describing with, we're going through the course, we're making it good. Hey, Claude, go look at this quiz. Here's the current quiz questions. Make sure they're well written and no punch Sally in the face answers. That was a problem if we were following that sequence. It was much better if we updated and agreed on all the content in the new updated course. And then we were like, okay, scrap whatever quiz you have in your memory, fresh start, course goal, audience, objectives, content, lesson by lesson screenshots with me and Claude, because I changed my mind when I see things in the LMS, go write me new quiz questions. And so the Claude skill that I'm still working on, and I need to make sure that these instructions are in there, but I have stuff in there that's like don't write a quiz until the content for the course is agreed upon. As you write quizzes, I need a mix of recall and application because I don't care if people memorize terminology or that they can correctly identify what the always transition does. Like, they can look that up. That's a dumb question. Sorry, I get very personal and angry about bad quiz questions. But like, I need them to focus on the decisions they need to make, the signals that they need to look out for in the platform that are going to prompt them. Before I click this, let me make sure I know what my end goal is and why I'm doing this. And rather than building one massive workflow with a bunch of steps, making a bunch of API calls behind the scenes, I need to approach it as modular building blocks. Course design, automation design, Roost workflows, all the same. The secret to life is break it down.
Okay, so it sounds like the majority of the use case is around auditing, maintaining the content, keeping it up to date, and ensuring that it is connected because of the way that I saw you have your Notion and some of those success metrics and the goals, the learning objectives upfront documented, and it's referencing that. It's continuously, by the sounds of it, sort of checking to make sure that is not only is this content good, instructionally sound, it's also going to help our users achieve these specific outcomes that I've set out. And it's going through this continuous loop by the sounds of it. Are you thinking about automating this through, like, what's the next stage of evolution to this?
Yes. Oh, such a good question. And that does inspire me to share my screen one more time for the Roost crash course. I got to be careful about what I share because some stuff is proprietary, but I feel pretty confident about this part. This is the updated course, right? And I'm just going to jump ahead to one of the lessons that required a little bit of, again, figure out what's broken, look at it in pieces, and fix it. So we have a markdown file with instructions for, taking a Notion lesson draft, and it knows enough that, like, in Notion, there is the little toggle. Claude is able to recognize this as a chunk that it converts into SkillJar friendly HTML. I
Oh.
log into the SkillJar admin backend dashboard. I open that lesson. I click the little HTML container and paste it. I think a lot of that could be automated. So, like, that is something I'd be more comfortable with. Of course, automating just putting it into a course that isn't live to users yet. Probably a lot of SkillJar admins out there are like, well, that's what your test environment is for. Guess what? I don't really have one set up properly. I just do it live and hide things and hope for the best. So, do what makes sense for you. Do what you're able to. I am learning a lot along the way, and there's stuff that I would certainly do differently if I had more time and resources to learn things the proper way. Just like probably could have started with a better prompt for Claude, but we are where we are, and I celebrate that. Anyway, we have this, and the standard SkillJar HTML markdown file, it does pretty well, but when it gets overloaded, and again, I learned externally, like just for my own benefit with working with Claude, beyond the scope of this project or anything customer education related, like keep things as small and usable as they can be. So rather than flooding an already pretty lengthy file that tells Claude, here's how you convert Notion stuff to SkillJar HTML, respecting the H2, H3s, making sure that you're not applying overrides and bullet points and da 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 da. Like, there was a lot of tweaking it took to get to that stage. Some lessons, we wanted a button that sends an email or an accordion so that we don't have this wall of text. Like, the user can click on it, expand, take it in, digest it, move on to the next content. So we have a separate file for SkillJar components. And one of the last ones that I worked on here was this little button. And it took so much back and forth. And Claude tried to tell me why it couldn't work. But ultimately, I applied what I knew from like years ago, taking an HTML course. This was back in like 2011 when I got a library science degree. Anyway, I just had to take out a little like no rel opener thingamaboo in the code, and that got it to work.
Thingamaboo. That's the technical
Thingamaboo,
term.
exactly. And I'm showing you this on my screen, and I don't know if you can see the email pop up, but imagine that we're looking at an Outlook email. that has the subject line and it says something that landed for me in the Roost crash course. Anyway, a real customer clicked this week, and we got an email. And I was all excited because I'm like, we have this closing reflection, and so many people are going to skip it, just like Anthropic's AI fluency course, which is still one of the best courses that I took on AI to this day. They had a lot of like little reflection activities. Did I always do them? No, I got busy and distracted, and I just wanted the shortcut. Anyway, customer did this, emailed us. I'm all excited because I'm like, what's one thing that resonated with you? I expect all this glowing praise. And what I get is, hey, your quiz questions don't really align with the content. They didn't say it in those specific terms, but I'm like, oh, crap. And so that is what nudged me to go back to rewrite the quiz, because it wasn't until we'd gone through all this and, like, again, cognitive load, I'm doing multiple courses at once. I don't know what's where. But I asked Claude, I'm like, here's feedback from a customer. Here's what they're saying. How did we get here? Why is it like this? I thought you wrote me a good quiz. Why are you failing me, Claude? I got really emotional with it. And it was like, you are absolutely right, because it does that, right? The questions here aren't really suitable for a beginner level fun crash course. Like, you are asking people, what does a data alias do? And what happens with this API call? And I'm like, yep, you are absolutely right. Let's go back. Let me give you screenshots of the updated content and let's improve it. Again, a lot of iterative work. So I think going back to your original question, and out of this tangent, where do I want to take this? What can be automated? I'm still very hesitant to hand off educational design decisions or stuff where like you really need an expert who knows stuff about how we learn. Updating wording, updating even images, like AI still struggles with that. And I think human artists and graphic designers create way better output, but sometimes constrained resources, you need to make cuts. Some of that I might be more comfortable with, but like nothing goes live until we've actually gone through it with fresh eyes, because we're going to notice those things that the automation, the AI can blow past. Maybe one day we'll get there, but I think it's going to take a lot more iteration back and forth.
I think the thing that I've started to notice, I'm curious to get your take on this, but the way that I'm using my Claude now, maybe it's the role that I'm in, but I'm using it like as if I had a team. So I'm finding that like despite this conversation around like, oh, we have, you have fewer resources, you have to do more with less, all true. And therefore I've shifted to this model where it's like now I have essentially a team of bots where I would have had a team of humans before. And now I have a team of bots. They all need different context. They all need different things from me. I expect different things from all of these different agents that I've like codified or whatever. And it means that I'm running more of them. And then so for me, the cognitive load has been a little bit challenging because it's like, where am I having what conversation and what skill do I need to provide to who to be able to like act on, towards the goals that I have. And I'm almost finding it more challenging than when I had a team. And often what I'm finding is like perhaps got used to having different role levels reporting to me in past roles, right? And so I'll have like directors reporting to me, I'll have ICs reporting to me, and obviously I'm going to treat them differently. It's kind of the same, but I haven't figured out how to provide the skills sufficiently enough to my Claude agents, I guess, where they operate the same way that I would have if I had like director level reports reporting to me. That's where I'm finding this challenge.
Yeah.
It's like I have more bots as if I had more humans, so I can do more stuff, but the level of quality is different. I'm just curious to get your take on that.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to look at it. And it's something that I was inspired by a recent episode of the Customer Education Lab, C Lab podcast, where someone talked about training basically like those agents focused on different skills. So that's another, again, visual that I want to work on with Claude just to help me think about it, because now I finally like updated the linear process of how are we doing a course audit start to finish. But what's missing is seeing a more like spatial representation, because it's not linear, of which Claude, imagine them like, wearing those mustache and glasses disguises or like a hat, like different duders, different Claudes, and how they connect to each other. And like you still need that human to put them in their proper place. So I'm excited to work on that next.
Makes sense.
the thing I want to emphasize here too is like, again, we're being asked to do more with less. And sometimes someone is hired to do customer education and it's like, that's your whole job, all the customer education. It's going to be really, really hard. That person can probably learn enough and do great, but the better you can segment those roles and allow them to collaborate with and learn from each other, the better. So I'm going to be treating my Claude projects, agents, skills, whatever in a similar fashion. Like, don't
Yeah,
expect too much of them.
that's
Have
right.
each one do its part, nurture them, teach them to work together. Yeah.
It's like just like any other team. I think that's the right approach. It's challenging for sure because it's a for me at least it's been a mental model shift. I've really had to think differently about how I structure things compared to if I would have structured like, I need to hire for these 3 roles to execute on these specific tasks. It's like I have to think differently about tasks and context and skills than I would have. It's just a bit of a different thing. It's not that we didn't do that before. Obviously, you're thinking about skills gaps identification on your team when you want to build a robust team and you're doing all of that stuff, but it's just a bit of a different flavor of it, I'm finding. And I still haven't totally wrapped my head around it.
Yeah, same. And I don't know if I'll ever wrap my head around it. And it's probably going to
No.
change by then, right? Like
Well, and
AI
that's
is
the
evolving
thing.
so quickly. But I
It's
think the
happening so
important thing is like
fast.
that you're thinking about it, right? And that is the important part. Keep it flexible. Things might need to evolve as the AI improves and as it has different capabilities, but that human piece of thinking about how the pieces connect and which ones need to come first, or are they circular? How it all operates and how you build it in terms of these reusable, flexible pieces.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that is just the important thing to keep doing. And you don't need to worry about getting to an end result because I don't think there is one. I think it's always going to evolve because our work is always evolving and what we're educating customers on is always evolving. And yeah, that can be a little stressful, but I also get bored very quickly and I am never bored in my day job at Roost. I have the best team. Shout out to Lauren and Eddie and our freelance editor Ike and my boss Eric. Like we're a small but mighty team. We love the folks we work with. We love the subject matter experts, the humans who work in other teams at Roost, and we love our little hat and mustache and sunglasses, Claude agents. We're all collaborating and learning from each other.
My last question, did you name them? Do they have names?
My Notion agent has a name. His name is Noshi. You can customize your own little Notion agents. Claude, I just call Claude.
Just Claude.
Yeah.
Clea, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I think so many people are going to pick up some valuable tidbits from what you shared. I think to your point, there's a lot going on. I've been referring to it as like the ground is shifting underneath my feet. And just when I think that I've found steadiness and I'm like, okay, that passed, I can think again. It's like, nope, there's another seismic shift happening and it's happening again and the whole ground is shaking again. That's sort of how I've described it. But I think like what you've shared is such a smart way of approaching it, the breakdown of steps and also just the concept of like continuous optimization. I think it's such an under-tapped skill for people in our industry to think about, to just stop trying to boil the ocean. Just think about continuous optimization instead. Have a system in place whereby you are continuously going back and optimizing, learning from what you just pushed, optimizing it again, learning from what you just pushed, right? I think that's the
Yeah,
approach. So just really
exactly
appreciate
right.
on this.
The ground is moving, but maybe we shouldn't be walking on the ground, right? That is a constraint forced by gravity, but I don't know, the future could have no gravity. So just trust what you're doing, trust that you're going to land in the right place, and be flexible enough that you can imagine a process where you're walking on the walls or the ceiling. That part doesn't matter. The part that matters is you know which direction you're heading in and you are recruiting others to help you land in the right place and to keep finding that footing. All right, metaphor done.
It's like always be learning is
Yeah,
basically the long story short. Love it. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. And I look forward to many more AI conversations in our future. I'm sure this is not the last one.
the same. Thank you again,
Where
Sam.
can people find you? LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a place to go chat with you if anyone's curious and wants to learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. I love chatting with people. Don't be shy about reaching out.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.